I was only 22 years old when I learned that the people who say I love you the loudest can hurt you the quietest. My name is Althea Reyes. I grew up in a small barangay in Laguna where everyone knows everyone, and secrets don't stay secrets for long. Or at least, that's what I thought. At 22, I believed my life was already falling perfectly into place. I had just finished college with a degree in business administration. I was working part-time at a small accounting firm in Colomba, and I was engaged to the man I thought was sent by God himself, Marco Villanueva. He was 26, confident, responsible, the kind of man who carried groceries for old ladies without being asked, the kind of man who called my mother Tita with respect in his voice. When he proposed to me on the quiet shores of Batangas, with the sunset painting the sky orange and pink, I cried so hard I couldn't even say yes properly. Camille was there that day, my best friend since we were 15. She held my phone and recorded everything. She screamed louder than I did. She hugged me so tight afterward that I could barely breathe. "You deserve this," she whispered in my ear. I didn't realize then she was whispering it to herself, too. Camille and I were inseparable. She slept over at our house. She knew every fight Marco and I ever had, every insecurity, every fear. She knew that sometimes I felt I wasn't good enough for him. She knew that he might find someone prettier, someone more confident, someone like her. But I trusted her more than I trusted myself. That was my first mistake. Before I continue this beautiful story, I just want to take a moment to say thank you for being here. And if you enjoy my storytelling and the kind of stories I create on this channel, please don't forget to like this video and subscribe to my channel, and share your thoughts in the comments. Plus, I'm curious to know where you're listening from. Tell me in the comments. Now, let's continue our story. 3 months before the wedding, things started changing. Small things. Marco began working late more often. He said there were new projects in the engineering firm in Makati. He'd come home tired, distracted, his phone always face down on the table. Camille, on the other hand, started canceling our weekly coffee dates. She said she was busy at her marketing job. She said she was stressed. And yet, she always seemed perfectly free whenever Marco needed help with wedding errands. "I'll go with him to meet the caterer. You're tired, Thea." I thought she was being supportive. I thought I was lucky to have a best friend who cared so much about my future husband. But inside, something felt misplaced, like a painting slightly crooked on the wall. You don't notice it at first, but once you see it, you can't unsee it. The night everything shattered, it was raining. Hard. Marco texted me at 7:48 p.m. "Working late again, love. Don't wait up." 5 minutes later, Camille sent me a message. "Headache, going to sleep early. Talk tomorrow." I stared at both messages on my screen, side by side, and for the first time, my chest tightened. Not because I knew, but because I felt. Call it intuition, call it God, call it the quiet voice women are taught to ignore. I grabbed my car keys, I told my mom I was dropping off medicine to Camille, and I drove. The rain made everything blurry. Streetlights stretched like tears across my windshield. My hands were shaking on the steering wheel, though I didn't know why. I reached Camille's condo in Makati just before 9 p.m. The guard recognized me. I'd been there dozens of times. When the elevator doors opened on her floor, I could already hear it. Laughter. A man's laughter. Familiar, warm, dangerous. My heartbeat started pounding so loudly I could hear it in my ears. Thud, thud, thud. Her door wasn't fully closed, just slightly open, like someone forgot or didn't care. I stepped closer, and that's when I saw them. Marco's back was facing me, his arm wrapped tightly around Camille's waist. She was wearing the soft pink silk robe I once told her looked beautiful on her. His hand slid up her back, and then he kissed her. Slow, intentional, hungry. Not confusion, not an accident, not a mistake. A choice. My knees almost gave out. The medicine bag slipped from my fingers and hit the floor. The sound made them freeze. Camille looked up first. Our eyes met. For 1 second, I expected shock, guilt, fear. But she didn't look scared. She didn't look ashamed. She smiled. Not a big smile, just a small, victorious one. Like she had finally stepped into a role she believed was hers all along. Marco turned next, and the color drained from his face. Thea! But I couldn't hear the rest, because in that moment, something inside me died. Not my love for him, not yet. It was my innocence, my blind trust that loyalty was automatic between people who say they love you. But here's the part they didn't know, the part that changed everything. 2 weeks before that night, I had seen something on Camille's phone, something she thought I didn't understand, something that proved this wasn't just betrayal. It was a plan, and they thought I was the weak one, the simple 22-year-old province girl. They had no idea what I was about to do next.
2 weeks before I stood outside that half-open door, before I watched my fiancé kiss my best friend like I never existed, there was already a crack in the story. And it started with a borrowed phone charger. It was a Sunday afternoon. Camille was at our house, sitting cross-legged on my bed while we talked about wedding colors. Marco had just left after lunch with my family. My mom adored him. My younger cousins called him Kuya Marco. Camille's phone battery was dying. "Use mine," I told her. She handed me her phone casually, no hesitation, no panic. That's how confident she was. While it was charging, a message popped up on her screen. I wasn't trying to snoop, I swear I wasn't, but the preview showed Marco's name and one word: soon. My stomach tightened. I told myself it was probably about wedding planning, maybe a surprise for me, maybe they were coordinating something sweet. But something told me to look. Just one look. My fingers felt cold as I picked up her phone. She was in the bathroom. The screen lit up again. Marco, she still doesn't suspect anything. My vision blurred for a second. My hands trembled, but I unlocked the phone. Camille had once told me her password years ago. She never changed it. My birthday. Inside the messages, it wasn't just flirting. It wasn't just emotional cheating. It was strategy. Marco, after the wedding, everything transfers smoothly. Camille, you promise you won't back out? Of course not. Her dad's land title alone is worth it. I couldn't breathe. My father had recently passed away. The small parcel of land in Laguna was transferred to my name. It wasn't huge, but it was valuable, a future investment. And Marco knew that. I kept scrolling. There were messages going back 3 months. 3 months. That meant when Marco proposed to me on the beach, he was already messaging her. The sunset, the ring, the tears, all part of a bigger plan. Camille, she trusts me. I'll convince her to put everything under both your names after the wedding. Marco, that's why I need you. She listens to you. Need you. Not love you. Need you. In that moment, something strange happened. I didn't cry. I didn't scream. I didn't confront her when she walked out of the bathroom smiling. I locked her phone, placed it exactly where it was, and I smiled back. Because if they thought I was stupid enough to walk blindly into a trap, they didn't know me at all. So when I stood outside that condo door 2 weeks later, when I saw them kissing, when Camille smiled at me like she had won, I finally understood. They weren't just stealing my relationship, they were trying to steal my future. Marco stepped toward me that night. "Thea, I can explain." "Don't," I said quietly. My voice surprised even me. It didn't shake, it didn't break. Camille crossed her arms, suddenly bold now that everything was exposed. "You saw it already, no need for drama." No shame, no apology, just entitlement. I looked at both of them carefully. The man I was supposed to marry, the girl who used to braid my hair during sleepovers. I asked softly, "You think I didn't know?" Marco frowned. "What?" I tilted my head slightly. "You should really change your passwords." The silence that followed was heavy. Camille's confidence flickered for the first time. "What are you talking about?" she snapped. I stepped fully into the condo. I saw the messages about the land, about the transfer, about convincing me to put everything under both your names after the wedding. Marco's face went pale. Camille's lips parted slightly. And for the first time that night, they looked afraid. You were going to marry me, then convince me to combine assets. And after that, I looked directly at Camille. Were you going to leave together? No one answered. They didn't need to. Their silence confessed everything. Marco tried again. "Thea, listen." "No," I cut him off. "You listen." I pulled out my phone, and now I'm going to make one call. Camille's voice shook slightly. "Who are you calling?" I looked straight at her. "Someone who hates fraud." I pressed the call button, and this time they were the ones who looked like they were about to lose everything.
When I pressed that call button, my hands were steady, but inside, a storm. Marco stared at my phone like it was a weapon. Camille tried to laugh, but it sounded forced. "You're being dramatic, Thea." The line started ringing. Once. Twice. Then, "Attorney Ramos speaking." Marco's face changed instantly, because he recognized the name. Attorney Benjamin Ramos wasn't just any lawyer. He was my father's closest friend for over 20 years. He handled every legal document our family ever signed, including the transfer of my father's land title after he passed away. And more importantly, he hated deceit. "Good evening, attorney," I said calmly. "I'm so sorry to bother you this late." "It's all right, Iha," he replied warmly. "Is everything okay?" I looked straight at Marco while I answered. "No, but it will be." I turned on the speaker. Camille's arms dropped to her sides. "Attorney," I continued, "remember the documents you advised me not to sign until after marriage?" "Yes, the joint property agreement draft Marco requested." The air in the room shifted. Marco's eyes widened. Camille looked at him sharply. "Yes," I said softly, "that one." There was a long pause on the line. "I told you that draft was suspicious. It would have given him shared ownership of your inherited land immediately after the wedding." Camille's head snapped toward Marco. "You said it was normal," she hissed under her breath. Marco swallowed. "It is not normal," the lawyer's voice boomed through the phone. "Especially before a marriage has even stabilized. I advised Althea not to sign anything." I let that sink in, because here's what they didn't know. The day I saw those messages on Camille's phone, I didn't cry. I went straight to Attorney Ramos's office. I showed him screenshots I secretly took. Every message, every plan, every word about transferring assets. He had been furious, not just because of the money, but because they were trying to manipulate me. A 22-year-old woman they assumed was too young to understand contracts, too young to question paperwork, too naive to fight back. Attorney Ramos cleared his throat. "Althea, if there has been any attempt to deceive you into marriage for financial gain, that constitutes fraud and conspiracy." Camille's breathing became uneven. Marco finally found his voice. "Sir, that's not what this is." "Oh," the lawyer interrupted sharply, "because I have copies of messages stating otherwise." Silence. Heavy. Unforgiving. I watched them both carefully. The confidence, gone. The smirks, gone. The illusion of control, gone. Camille whispered, "You showed him?" I nodded slowly. "You thought I'd just walk down the aisle blindly?" I stepped closer to them. "I may be 22. I may be from the province, but I am not stupid." Marco ran a hand through his hair. "Fia, we were just using me?" His silence answered for him. Attorney Ramos spoke again. "Althea, if you wish, we can file a formal complaint tomorrow. I strongly suggest you cut all contact immediately." I smiled faintly. "I already have." I ended the call. The room felt different now, like the power had shifted completely. Camille's voice trembled for the first time since I arrived. "You're really going to ruin us over this?" I almost laughed. "Ruin you?" I looked around her condo, at the wine glasses on the table, at Marco's jacket thrown over her chair, at my fiancé in your living room. "You ruined yourselves." Marco stepped forward, desperation replacing arrogance. "Please, we can fix this." "No," I said softly. "You can't fix something that was built as a lie." Camille's eyes filled with tears, but I saw through them. Not regret, fear. Fear of losing security, fear of losing the future they calculated. I told her quietly, "You were my sister. I defended you when people said you were too ambitious, too competitive. I trusted you in my home." Her lips trembled. "And you?" I turned to Marco. "You didn't just cheat on me, you planned to legally trap me." That hurt more than the kiss. The kiss was betrayal. The paperwork was intention, and intention is colder than passion. I walked toward the door. No screaming, no slapping, no dramatic collapse. Just clarity. As I reached the doorway, Marco called my name one last time. "Thea." I paused, but didn't turn. "You're making a mistake." I finally looked back at him. "No," I said calmly. "For the first time, I'm not." And then I walked away. The wedding was canceled the next morning. Our families found out everything. Attorney Ramos formally warned Marco against any legal attempt to contact me regarding property matters. Within weeks, his engineering firm quietly terminated him after rumors of misconduct reached management. Camille? She lost more than a fiancé. She lost her reputation. In a small town, word travels fast. But here's what they didn't understand. This wasn't revenge. It was protection. Protection of my father's legacy. Protection of my future. Protection of the woman I was becoming. A year later, at 23, I started my own small accounting consultancy in Laguna. The land they tried to steal? I turned it into a rental property that now funds my business. And sometimes I think about that night. The rain, the half-open door, the smile she gave me. She thought she had won. But the truth? They underestimated the quiet girl, the 22-year-old they thought was naive. They thought I was just a bride in love. They never realized I was the only one in the room who was prepared. And that one phone call, it didn't just end a wedding. It saved my life. Thank you so much for listening all the way to the end. See you in the next story. Till then, take care of yourselves.